John, it's so great to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk about Think and Grow Rich because it's been a life-changing book for you. And then you've done all these amazing things with Napoleon Hill Foundation after reading the book and applying the principles and getting all sorts of amazing results in your life. So maybe we start with your experience with the book and how that has shaped your destiny.
Well, wow, in the limited time, I'll keep it as short as I can. But, my wife started a business in 1994, and she read this book a couple years after she started her business. And she said, "Hey, I'm reading the first chapter." She says, "It looks really good." She says, "We should read it together." And so we started reading it together. And then the next day, I ordered my own copy. And then we started reading this book together. And every night we read it. It's like watching a movie. When I first saw a movie called Matrix, you remember the movie with Keanu Reeves?
I
It
love
was
that
kind of,
movie. Yeah.
isn't it a great movie? But we were kind of going, what is this? It was such a weird, bizarre movie. It was some cool action. And then even recently, there was a movie by Leonardo DiCaprio called Inception. I don't know if you ever saw that, right?
I did, yep.
And it was kind of a weird kind of, because you had to like kind of watch it 2 3 times just to really understand what the movie was about. And that's kind of like the way Think and Grow Rich is. You can't just read it one time all the way through and say, "Oh, I read the book," because in almost every paragraph there's something in there that you can take away and apply to your life and to your business. And we said this is like the holy grail of business, right? I mean, everyone needs this. And we came back and we gave the book to all our friends and family during the holidays, their birthdays. And then the following year, we gave them another copy. It was just a different version, but it was another copy. They're like, "John, I already got this." And I'm like, "Yeah, but this one's a different version. You got to see this." So we started doing that and we applied it. And my lawyers, my CPAs, everybody had to read it. And magically, some people would say, or lucky, John and Arlene are successful entrepreneurs. And but
Overnight sensation, yes.
absolutely. And yeah, it all happened because of this book called Think and Grow Rich. So I am very passionate about that book.
Yeah, and it shows. It's funny, people ask audiences sometimes, hey, raise your hand if Think and Grow Rich has been a book that you've read and gotten value out of. A lot of people will raise their hands, but then how many people can cite the 13 principles by heart without
Right.
referencing the book? I mean, if you really got the book and really internalized it and applied it in your life, that you'd be rattling off those 13 principles as easy as your loved ones' names, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So that's definitely a perspective shift because I can't remember all 13. I remember some of them more than others. I don't remember all 13. And I'm
Right.
first to
Right.
admit that. So, what would be a principle out of the 13 that has been surprisingly game changing for you?
I don't know if it was a surprise, but I mean, for me, I think I would have to say exactly what Napoleon Hill refers to in chapter one, where he says that the starting point of all achievement begins with desire. And it's not just having any kind of desire, it has to be a burning desire, that we have this inner candle that's born inside when we're born, and this light goes on, and that candle cannot be extinguished by anybody other than yourself, right? And so the question is, how hungry are you for whatever you're trying to achieve? And most people are pretty full. Most people are content, with where they're at. They
Fat and
make a
happy,
couple.
yes.
Yeah, they make a couple $100,000 a year, and they say, "Hey, I got a house, couple kids. We go on a couple of vacations. I'm good. I mean, they say I'm good." And so, yeah, most people aren't hungry. I mean, if I had invited some people over to my house and they get to my house and then I said, "Have you guys eaten yet?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, John, before we came to your house, we stopped off at a restaurant. We just ate at the Cheesecake Factory. Oh, we're full. We had cheesecake and the Tex Mex egg rolls. We're good." And I said, "Oh, wow, that's such a shame because in my kitchen right now, I've got a five-star, chef, a celebrity chef cooking up a 9-course meal for all of us. They wouldn't even enjoy it because they're what? They're full." And so you got to get real hungry in life and want more than where you're at. And how you amp up that desire or hunger is to start associating with different people, right? So, there's a saying that if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're not in the right room, right? And it goes the same thing. If you're the richest guy in the room, you're also in the wrong room, right? So if I'm making, let's say, $1 million a year and I'm hanging out with a bunch of people making $60,000, ooh, I'm King Kong, right? But if I go start hanging out with people who make that every month, suddenly now I'm going to get pretty hungry because I'm like at the lowest of the food chain, right? And a lot of that is also driven by your personal competitiveness and everything else. But us as a family, my mom and my father, they're immigrants from South Korea. And I have to say South Korea now too, right? Because in the old days, we'd just go Korea. And they're like, oh, right, now I have to say South Korea because, it is split at the parallel, right? 38th parallel. And you got the North and you got the South. And mom and dad came from South. And they came to this country looking for that American dream. And so they did whatever they had to do because that was their desire. That was their burning desire. And it was not easy for them to come here. And they landed right there at LAX International Airport, hopped in a little taxi, drove down the street and saw a sign, saw rent. And we moved into our little apartment, with bars and 5 locks on our doors. And that's where I grew up. In Southern California, we have this hamburger place called the Original Tommy's Burger. And it's a great burger, and it's very famous. And we grew up just a few blocks away from there. But one thing my mother always reminded me of was having that burning desire, and also that we as a family did not come to this country to screw up the opportunity, right? And I think that some people, they take for granted what they have here in this country. The opportunities they have, that you could pretty much be who you want to be and do what you want to do, unlike certain countries, because of the way the government is structured. Hey, we have the ultimate freedom. And I think most people are living in their own prisons with doors that are wide open, and that's where they want to be stuck at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what I love about, Dr. Martin Luther King, right? He said that most people die at the age of 25 and we just don't bury them until they're 85, right? Because most people have surrendered or allowed other people to hijack their dreams. Those dreams are that inner candle that cannot be extinguished other than the fact that you would allow someone to do that. So as long as you're hungry and you got that burning desire, that becomes the fuel to do all the other things,
Yeah. That principle I learned in Kabbalah, actually. I take Kabbalah classes and they talk about that desire being the fuel or the engine for all the light that you reveal, all the things that you create in
Right.
life. And if you pray, then try praying not for all your wishes to be granted and the good health and the money and all that, but pray for more desire and pray for more certainty so that
Right.
you can go out there with absolute certainty that you're going to create, God willing, all this abundance and everything, that you'll have that desire and you'll have that certainty to manifest everything.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. If you could share a bit more about your story of how you took these principles and applied them into your business and your life. You made quite a lot of money and created a lot of success for yourself and your family. You don't have to be traveling on this world tour and writing books and so forth. As far as money is concerned, you're good, right? You have
Yeah. Yeah.
lots of money to like last you for your lifetime, and yet you're hungry to go out there and share this message of Think and Grow Rich with the world. And you didn't even write the book. I mean, it's a book from the 1930s, and it's still as valid and valuable today as it was when it was written.
Right, exactly. And by the way, we just wrote a modern day version of it. In the 80s, a guy by the name of Dr. Dennis Kimbrough wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, which was actually a manuscript that was written by Napoleon Hill. And Dr. Dennis Kimbrough actually, put his name on there and printed the book, and published the book with the foundation. And a few years later, I don't think he was a doctor, but Lionel Sosa wrote Think and Grow Rich, A Latino Choice. And we had an amazing lady named Sharon Lechter who wrote many of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books and recently wrote a book called Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah, which
Also
was
wrote
a
book.
transcript that was locked away that Napoleon Hill had written many, many years ago, but it was never published. And then Sharon Lechter edited it and it was published, maybe a decade ago, right?
Right, exactly. So that's what happened. And she wrote a book on Think and Grow Rich for women. And of course, Amazon is the master of suggestive selling, right? Because they always say, hey, people who bought this also bought this book and this book and this book. And we're like little kids. We love clicking those things, and we have a little box that shows up at our front doors. I started clicking all the different versions of Think and Grow Rich, but there was not one called Think and Grow Rich, an Asian choice, right? So I thought Asian Pacific, Asian, Chinese, Japanese, Oriental, whatever. And there wasn't one book that had anything to do with Asian people. So I called the Napoleon Hill Foundation and I spoke to Don Green about it. And I said, hey, I would love to write this book if you give me the rights to do it. And I got the rights and I started writing it in February of 2018, finished it in September of 2018, got the manuscript over to them. And now they actually got it to a few publishers and the publishers jumped on it. My book is actually coming out at the end of this month and it's actually called How Rich Asians Think and Grow Rich, right? A Napoleon Hill Foundation publication. So it was interesting to take an Asian twist to it. And we had some amazing people like Steve Aoki. I don't know if you know who Steve Aoki is. He's a huge DJ. His father was the founder of Benihana restaurants that are all over the place, kind of started the whole Teppan where they cook at the table for you. And people, when you look at the book and you read the book, Napoleon Hill talks about the different types of fear that people have. And one of the fears is the fear of poverty, right? And so that was a big motivator for me because I didn't want to be poor. I've been poor and it sucks being poor. And so I wanted to make money. And eventually we started getting money and I didn't know how to even spend the money, right? Because I was so scared of being poor that I was just hoarding cash, right? I mean, not like hard cash. I wasn't like, had the green stuff, but at least I knew that money was sitting in an account somewhere that was accessible. And I liked seeing the numbers grow. And finally my wife said, honey, should we buy a house? And I'm like, well, let's wait a little bit, right? And she says, well, what are we waiting for? And I was like, well, I just want to make sure that this business is going to still continue and generate more money. And so I was scared to spend it. And eventually we started to have enough of it where just, I felt comfortable to buy a home. And then we started buying all the cars. And then we bought one car after another. It just never ended. And it's because I was buying these things and I thought that a Ferrari would make me happy, right? And it was cool for like 2 weeks where the boys would come over and go, whoa, man, this is so cool. Let's go for a ride. And I give them a little spin around the block. And then after that, it was like, okay, next car. So I bought all the cars, got the Rolls, got the Bentleys, McLarens, you name it, big old monster trucks. And we've got 16 cars now. And right. So then we got these cars, like, what do we put them? So we had to go get a warehouse.
You can only drive one at a time,
Yeah, exactly. And, we went and bought all the homes. We got the boats and all that kind of stuff. And some people will call them a boat, but I guess you would call them a yacht or whatever. And I still was not fulfilled. And so I was asked by a friend of mine to go to a country called Nicaragua. And Nicaragua is a third world country. And now I've been politically corrected that we call them a developing country. But it was bad. We went out there, we saw all these children and didn't have clothes on, half of them. They're malnourished. They don't have books. They have book covers, but they don't have the pages inside the books. And I asked them, where did all the pages go? And they said, well, to be truthfully honest, they actually use that to use for the bathroom. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. They don't even have toilet paper, And so those are just little things that we take for granted, right? We can just go to a Costco, roll in there and buy a year's supply, maybe a week or month supply of toilet paper and come right home and buy a case of bottled water. And they didn't have things like that. And so my friend and I, we felt so bad that we were sitting in our own castles on our high horses. And there's people that aren't in a place where we're at today. And so we have these child prosperity centers and we're in 6 countries. We've got 10 locations. Each place has about 150 kids. We've adopted about 1,500 children around the world. And I'll tell you what, talk about fulfillment. Until someone has actually gone there and seen that, you don't know how good you feel when you actually did something. You know what I mean? All of a sudden I was happy. I was fired up to go. These kids, a lot of them thought, they were calling me Jackie because they thought I was Jackie Chan.
That's funny.
Right. So a lot of people do call me Jackie. It's my nickname now because these kids actually really thought I was Jackie Chan. It's hilarious. I just, love these kids around the world. And now we're doing things here domestically in the US. And that is fulfilling. And I hear a lot of people say, well, John, I want to do that. I want to do that. The thing is, a lot of these people are not, they can donate some of their time, but they just don't have all the resources. And some people who are trying to help are struggling to do it. And I thought, well, what if I can help them make money? Then they can have the money, which is a tool, right? So money can be used in a good way or a bad way. It's like a drug, right? I mean, you can use drugs to help people and heal people or fix people or relieve the pain or whatever it is. But there's other people who take money and buy drugs and do other things with it. And it's like a hammer, right? You can destroy things with a hammer or you can build things with a hammer.
Yep.
Money is the same way. You can destroy things and people and your life with money if the character isn't there. As you have $1 million, hopefully that character is bigger than the $1 million, right? Because if the character is down here at the bottom and your money is here, what happens is you lose your money over time. But if you make the $1 million and the character goes up higher than that, and what happens even if you lose the money always comes back because the character is always there. I don't know if that makes sense, right?
Totally. In fact, another way to think of it is that money accentuates what you already are. It amplifies it. So if you have a poor character, it's going to amplify that poor character. If you're a very giving and forgiving person, that character will get amplified as well.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then I thought, well, now we're going to show people how to make money, and so we got into the financial industry, which is what our core business is. And then from there, we were helping people financially. But what was interesting and how this whole journey started was the fact that a lot of people we were talking to were saying, well, money is the root of all evil, right? Or they would say things like, money doesn't grow on, what is it?
Trees, yes.
Trees, yeah, right? Or save your money for a
rainy
day, right?
Yes. All
You see
scarcity
how
mindset. Yes.
exactly, right? And so we're like, oh my God, so where is this thinking coming from? So we actually had to go and figure out what's causing this, right? So Arlene, my wife and I, we both believe that we're all wired for success, but we're programmed to fail. Right. So that programming and the verbal programming and the social programming, all those things has affected the way people think. Right. And so a lot of the things that's been stuck into these 6 inches up here between the ears are things as to what are you watching on TV? What are you listening on to the radio, right? What are you reading on a daily basis? All those things get programmed up here. And the way we think, I always say to people, I say, do you ever think about what you think about? Right? Because that's kind of like the inception, right? It's like a dream inside of a dream. And you ever think about what you're thinking about? Because the way we think will absolutely, in my opinion, again, everybody's got their opinions, and my opinion is the way you think will influence the way you feel. And then the way you feel, right, every day, it will influence the way you act. And then the way you act will absolutely determine the results, right? But those results are directly correlated to, again, the way you thought, right? Because you were thinking about that before. So if someone can't even think about buying a big house, right, how can you achieve it when you can't even think it? And this is where Napoleon Hill talks about whatever the mind can actually conceive and believe, it will
can
achieve.
achieve. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? Because whatever you think about will be the result, right? So if we think about these things that we want and then we feel that way, then we act on it. And that's a key component of this formula is that you actually act. Now, the word ACT, A-C-T, is an acronym, okay? And what that acronym stands for, A stands for appropriate. So you have to take appropriate action, right? Doing all the right things that are congruent with what you were thinking about and the results that you wanted to have, right? So, an easy example would be if somebody says, John, I want to lose weight. Okay, great. But now they're eating burgers and pizzas and drinking soda and go, oh my God, these are just our genes. I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to get fit. Well, no, look at what you're eating. They're not appropriate for what the results that you're seeking, right? And then C, okay, for the word ACT, stands for consistent. Whatever you're trying to do, be consistent and stay on it, right? A lot of people start a business and 3 months later, they're not making money and they're like, oh, this wasn't for me. And Bob and Sally and Tommy and David and everybody said I wasn't going to make it. Maybe they were right. Okay, again, the programming, right? So if you stay consistent over a long period of time, those efforts will begin to compound and all the results will manifest themselves in due time. And then finally, T stands for tenacious, right? Your tenacity has everything to do with your actions. And then again, goes to actions, gets the results, and then you start to live your life. And so we're going on this tour so that we can share with people, because they go, oh, I know what the 13 principles are. I Google them. I know what they are. But again, like what you said earlier, you can know what it is, but do you internalize it? Do you know how to apply it? Do you know how
Yeah.
to, do those things? And that's what we want to teach on the tours, the how. You know what I mean? We tell people dream big. Well, okay, great. How? You know what I mean? And so the key word there, how, is every speaker will address on that stage. And we've got the most renowned speakers from around the world flying into these cities to share these wonderful nuggets with everybody.
Yep. And you're going to be one of those.
I am, yes.
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited to do so. Yeah.
So speaking of dreaming big, the Napoleon Hill Foundation was trying to dream big about what they were going to do to take the teachings, the principles into the next number of decades. And they had some meetings, and you, as a big donor, were in on some of those meetings, and you challenged those folks who were trying to dream big with dreaming way bigger. And that's how the documentary came to be. So could you share that story? Because I think it's quite instructive. Like, even those people who can rattle off 13 principles by heart and really embody them can still get trapped in a smaller mindset of what's possible. And you opened them up to something that became amazing, and you pretty much spearheaded that, from my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take all the credit, because we do have an amazing guy named Scott Servine, who is the director, and we had some producers and everyone collectively. We now have a new partner now, a guy named Andrew Graham, who is now the CEO and kind of running the show on a daily basis. But collectively, Scott Servine and his wife, Brooke March, actually worked for me years ago, years ago. And as they came into my leadership boot camp, I told them that they had to read this book. And then, of course, Scott leans over to me and says, hey, John, he goes, this is such a great book. Like, we should make a movie out of this thing, right? And I was like, yeah, let's do it someday. And so we had this opportunity, and we wanted to make this movie because the younger generation today, and I don't mean to insult the younger generation, okay, in any way. I say this respectfully to the younger generation, because I think they're enormously intelligent. But there are just certain things they just don't, understand. And I met a guy, and I've done this several times, where I meet a millennial, right? And I'll say, hey, do you know a guy by the name of Henry Ford? And they'll say, oh, was he like a former president or something? And I'll say, well, not quite, but there was a Ford. You got that part right, but it wasn't Henry Ford. Henry Ford was the one who built that. He had this desire to build a carriage, right, without horses, you understand? And so he built this thing called the car.
But
And so I'll
millennials
say,
don't even know who Henry Ford is or was.
yeah, they don't. Or even a Thomas Edison, right? And I said, hey, you ever heard of a guy named Thomas Edison? And he's like, oh, is he like a YouTuber? And I'll go, not quite a YouTuber. And I said, but he's the guy who invented what? Electricity. And they're like, oh. And I go, yeah, you get a bill from him right now every month. It's called Edison, right? And so, and they're like, oh, yeah, yeah. So, unfortunately, the younger generation don't know people from 100 years ago, right? I mean, let's get real. They know the modern day names like The Rock, or Will Smith and
But
other
not
wonderful.
Rockefeller.
Yeah, exactly. Or Rockefeller, good. Yeah. It's just like, how do we get the younger generation to read a book? They're not going to. Some will, some won't. So we have to make a movie, because what do they want to do? They want to go on Netflix. They want to see it streaming on their phone. They go to podcasts. They go to YouTube. I mean, that's basically what we do, or what they do. So we felt it was essential to make this movie, and the foundation saw the vision of it. They gave us the rights to do it, and Scott Servine, the director, did a phenomenal job on it. Most people thought it was going to be like some sort of a documentary. They thought it was going to be something similar to The Secret, right, that came out years ago. And there was nothing wrong with The Secret. I mean, at that time, The Secret it came out at the perfect time, well done. It was the way they did the marketing of it. It was phenomenal. But even if you look at the book, what The Secret was, which is the law of attraction, that whole concept is actually in the book, Think and Grow Rich, right? I mean, Napoleon Hill addresses that in the book. We did the movie, it came out, and we went directly into theaters, right? Because I thought it would be so cachet to be in a theater. And oh, I wanted my friends and family to see Think and Grow Rich on the top of the screen outside as they're promoting the movie. And we went to the theaters and we did not make any money, just like everybody said that movie theaters, you won't make any money. They're very expensive unless you're a Star Wars or Marvel or DC movie. So we came out of the theaters and then we went straight to digital. And our partner here, Andrew Graham, did a phenomenal job with his team and doing all the digital marketing, and we killed it on digital marketing. And then we started doing licensing rights around the world. So now we're in all these different countries around the world. We started doing these little private screenings for different organizations, and that's how the whole speaking came out. In fact, last year I did a meeting. I had a lady who asked me to come to a conference and speak at it, and I was going to go there to promote my book and my movie. And she said, yeah, she says, we'd love to cover all your expenses. I'm like, wow, that's very generous of you. And I mean, I didn't say that out loud, but I said that on the inside. And she says, yeah, and I'm sure you probably get $50, $100,000 for your speaking events. And I really didn't know what she was talking about. And she says, well, we can pay you $10,000 to come out and speak. And that $10,000 was the first $10,000 I ever made in speaking outside in the real world,
So
and,
you're
and
now
then
officially a professional speaker.
I am. I'm a professional speaker, man. And who would have thought? Never. In my wildest of wildest dream, would I've ever thought that what I would be doing is becoming a professional speaker. And so last year I did 200 speaking events last year. Some weren't as financially rewarding, but I did it anyway, not even so much the money. It's just I wanted to get in front of the audience and say, read the book, read the book. And I loved it. And then, of course, people started buying the DVDs of the movie. And I said, when my book came out, I finished my book. I told the Napoleon Hill Foundation, Don Green and all the board members were so incredibly generous to me that they allowed me to go on a tour to promote my book and the movie. So I was going to go on a world tour, and just one after another, the word got out, and different speakers started calling and asking if they can be a part of the faculty to go on the tour. And I said, well, you realize I can't pay you any money. There's no budget for it. You're kind of a volunteer. And every one of these speakers that came on the tour with me said, John, we're not looking to get paid. We just want to be a servant leader / speaker and provide real content for the audiences who are going to be coming to our event. So
That's
it's just,
awesome.
it's amazing. Yeah. And, so many people come up to me and say, John, I was going to call up the Napoleon Hill Foundation and make a movie. And I mean, I must have heard that 1,000 times from different people, and I said, so why didn't you? And that's the thing, is that most people talk and talk and talk, but they never take action. And it's about execution. You can think and dream all you want, but you have to act on your dreams, one way or another. Take that journey to learn and hit all the obstacles and challenges and do it. Just do it. Whatever you're going to do, just do it. Don't let anybody else try to hijack your dreams. And you don't need anybody's approval. You don't need their validation. Napoleon Hill talks about you having that sense, that sixth sense. And then he talks about imagination, right? And having that creative imagination coupled with all the other 12 principles, you can do it. There's nothing you can't do. Yeah.
Yep. Amazing. So the movie has become really successful in streaming and digital and DVD. Didn't do great at the box office, but that's okay because that wasn't the end game. And so what have you gotten in terms of reach, the metrics that you're gauging the success of the movie on?
The thing is, I mean, it's based on the total revenues, right? I mean, we see the profit margins now in the movie, and social media kind of changes everything when it comes to distribution. So if anybody ever wants to make a movie in this day and age, unless you're one of those big Hollywood blockbuster hits and you've got a $200-300 million budget, then yeah, you're going to make those. And there's always going to be a one-off, right? I mean, there were different movies that were low budget, and the way they did the marketing piqued everybody's curiosity, and they got us all, and we went into a theater to watch it. But I mean, most movies don't make any money in the movie theaters, right? And so digital really is the way to go. You don't need the big Hollywood producers anymore to make movies anymore. Today, you can make a movie and even go to Netflix and be pretty profitable there, But if
Yeah.
you understand, you need to go and find somebody that can share with you what digital marketing is. Because if you understand digital marketing, understand ClickFunnels, and all that kind of stuff, you can actually go out there and crush it in the digital world,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I know a few things about that. I have 3 books on digital marketing, Art of SEO, Google Power Search, and
Yeah.
social e-commerce. So, in fact, I have a whole other podcast dedicated to digital marketing called Marketing Speak. Maybe I'll have you back on that show at some point to talk about all the funnels and marketing that you did to blow out that movie and your book launch and the world tour that you're doing and everything. That'll be for another day.
Yeah.
What was the cost and the time frame that the movie took to produce? Are we talking like a 6 months time frame and a few $100,000? Are we talking about many millions of dollars and multiple years to produce? Like what was involved there?
Well, at first it was just trying to figure out, well, okay, what was the budget? When we first sat down and talked about the budget, Scott Servine said, oh, we're going to kind of do it this way. And he had a budget, and Scott's so amazing. Like, he was doing the work of like 5 or 10 people, right? So we're like, hey, 300 grand, right? Or 400,000. Okay, well, that's reasonable. You know what I mean? So we don't have all these crazy special effects, but we didn't want it to be just a documentary. So when Scott brought in all the costume designers and the different sets, and then started saying, well, maybe we could do this and we could do that. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I like that idea. And next thing you know, we just started spending, 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 spending. And, $3 million later, here we are. It's no longer a $300,000 movie, right? So you just got to be prepared for the unknown. And even during the filming process, we would go out to a place and we were ready to shoot, and all the cast is ready, all the camera people are ready. And out of nowhere comes, I mean, literally a massive storm. Nobody even saw it on the weather forecast, right? So now we got all this gear. We're out there in the middle of nowhere shooting the scene. And we're now all sitting there in our cars, in our trailers, in our hotel rooms. And so all those little things were the unexpected. And that's why a lot of times we went over budget and what have you. And it was also just changing things up along the way. So
Mm.
most movies could be probably filmed in maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 months. I mean, it took us almost 2 years to get all the filming done, right? Because we had course corrections along the way. And that's okay, right? You adapt and you change, you come over hurdles and obstacles, right? But I also knew that there's a great quote that it says that an obstacle or a challenge is something that you see when you take your eyes off your goals. We were very goal driven. And so all these little obstacles or challenges, we said, oh, this is hilarious. We're going to make another movie just on the making of the Think and Grow Rich movie and all the craziness that went behind the scenes, And then we had to work with certain kind of personalities, which was always quite interesting to deal with personality types. But yeah, we did that, and we're breaking, shattering records. I mean, we're going to probably do $15 million this year on digital campaigns.
That's
So if
amazing.
anybody, so if
Congrats on
anybody
that.
wants to, yeah, thank you. So if anybody wants to know about ClickFunnels, they need to talk to you about this kind of stuff because that's your expertise, right? I mean, it's not even my expertise, right? I just know sounds good, let's do it. But when you have the systems in place, then it works, and that's just the way to go. And we made more money on digital than most people do theatrically.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. My expertise isn't so much with funnels. I do know a fair bit about funnels, but it's more SEO, search engine optimization. I know everything you could imagine about how Google works. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
pretty,
great.
pretty fun.
Hmm.
But let's talk about how the world tour is set up and how that reinforces the Think and Grow Rich 13 principles. You, as a speaker, you have all these guest speakers who are volunteering their time, but you don't have the same speakers going to every single city. You have dozens of cities that you're covering over a several month time period. Give us a little more detail on how this is all structured and what the end game is.
So we're doing 15 cities in the US, and we're going from California to every major city. So it starts off on May 3rd and 4th in the Anaheim Convention Center in Southern California, and then from there we go directly to Chicago. Then we come back down to San Diego, and then we go up to Washington, up to Northern California. We're in Seattle. Then we go Dallas. We do Houston, San Antonio. We do Orlando, Tampa, Atlanta, New York. We're hitting all the major cities, right? And then after that, we begin May 3rd. We end in the second week of November, just domestically here. And then we all kind of take a 2-month little hiatus to enjoy time with our family during the holidays. And then we resume back in the third week of January. where we begin now starting to go to all these different countries. So we're going from London to Malaysia to Singapore, India, South Africa, Germany, Sweden. And it's interesting because our campaign on Facebook has now penetrated some of these countries, and they're calling us from these other countries and saying, hey, are you guys coming to our city and our town or our province or our country? And we weren't going to, but now we're going because there's a huge following of Think and Grow Rich people there. So all of a sudden it just became, 35 more cities around the world. So I was shocked to see how many speakers actually said, I want to go with you to each one of these countries as well. So we're going there. And one of the things in terms of content, why I encourage people to come to this event, and my concern is that there's so many events. Like, last year I did all these different events and people were charging money and they went to these events and it felt like it was like a live infomercial, right? It was like a pitch festival after a pitch festival after a pitch festival. And I don't know. For me, it was like people gave like just a little bit, it was like a TED Talk, like 15-minute, whatever. And then they said, if you like what you heard, go to the back of the room and sign up for this other thing that costs $10,000, right? And it was like one person after another was pitching. And so, that concerned me because I think it's hurting this industry. You know what I mean? It's hurting them, in my opinion. Others who are doing the pitch festivals will argue and obviously have a different opinion than what I think, but it's hurting because I think more and more people are less inclined to go to an event. So one thing I definitely want to stress to people is that it will not be a pitch festival. These speakers are coming in and really teaching you content and things that are very relevant and practical that you can apply to your life the moment you walk away from the event. And I'm hoping that everybody walks away will embrace the principles that we teach there to their life, and then they'll start to see the difference, and then the word will get out, and I think will be the biggest movement around this globe here over the next 12 months.
Yeah. Amazing. So what's the URL for the world tour? How would people get tickets?
www.tgr for Think and Grow Rich, tgrworldtour.com. So tgrworldtour.com. And when they go in there, there's different packages. If somebody wants to come with a group, I think there's a group package in there for 50 tickets at $2,500. And 50 tickets, at $2,500, that comes out to $50 a person, right? And so for $50, for a 2-day event to have people like Kevin Harrington, one of the original Sharks there, Marshall Faulk, a Hall of Famer in the NFL and also a wonderful entrepreneur. We got former basketball players, actors, celebrities. We got Mario Lopez coming in, Dr. Bill Dorfman, right, who is the one who invented, the Zoom and the Bright Smile, the big celebrity dentist. There's just so many amazing people that are coming in to speak and share from their heart what they can do with their life. So
awesome.
There you have it.
Now, there's a concept from another book of Napoleon Hill's that we just briefly alluded to earlier. The concept is called The Drift, and the book is Outwitting the Devil. Have you gotten much out of Outwitting the Devil in comparison with Think and Grow Rich, or has really all of your focus been on Think and Grow Rich?
Mostly been Think and Grow Rich, and to be honest with you, and I probably don't even want to say this publicly, but I'm ashamed to admit it, but last year I almost had no time to read a book, right? Other than my own, writing my book, right? And meeting with all the different people last year and the year before, just with the movie release and the making of. I think the last 4 years, my whole life has been consumed with Think and Grow Rich. And, and every day I get a book sent to us from some author, some speaker says, please add me to your faculty. Here's my book. This is what I teach. This is my expertise and area of influence. So I'm getting all these books and I got lots of books to read. I just haven't had the chance to read anything for the last 4 years. Even Sharon, I was actually on Sharon Lecter's podcast, and I'm so grateful she didn't call me out on that book, but and say, John, what do you think about my book, Outwitting the Devil? But I honestly, I do have the book and I own the book. I just haven't had a chance to read it. So.
No problem. Understandable. By the way, listeners, I've had Sharon Lecter on this show, and it's such an amazing episode. It's definitely worth listening to. So check that out. We do talk quite a bit about Outwitting the Devil and the concept of the drift. We talk about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and because she was co-author on that book as well. It's a great episode. In the last couple of minutes that we have here, could you share some kind of next action takeaways for our listener that they can apply right away, like today or at least next week, that will make a difference in their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing that people should do is to know where they're going, right? You know, people say, well, what's my purpose? I don't know what my purpose. I hear all these speakers saying you got to have a purpose, and I don't know what my purpose is, you know? And for me, it's like my purpose is just what would I want to do for the rest of my life, even if I didn't get paid? Right? I mean, like Michael Jordan, right? Or Kobe Bryant, right? Would they stop playing basketball, or would they still play basketball whether they're making money or not? I mean,
Mhm.
that's a dream, right? To play basketball their whole life and get paid to do what they love to do. My whole thing is I love helping people, right? I mean, I love to be able to instruct somebody in business and in life and how to avoid the mines on the minefields, right? How do you avoid that? And what I want to do is I want to leave behind my footprints where people can actually put their feet into the footprint of where I stepped to get to the other side. And I think one way I can do that is to go on tour and share those things with everybody. But everybody needs to know if you're going to go somewhere, even in your car, if you don't know how to get there, you're going to go to your navigation system or your GPS system, right? And
Right.
so it's the same thing in life. What's your GPS? And GPS in itself is an acronym. And what G stands for is, write down GPS, is G is your goals, right? And so it's your plan. It's like, what is it that you want? You know, and it's amazing how many people don't even know what they want in life.
Mhm.
So write it down. Just write it down. You got to put it down on paper. And Napoleon Hill talks about that. And when you write it down with specificity, right? So you got to be detailed as to what you want. And it's crazy what begins to happen in your life, and others will call, oh, that's the law of attraction. It's not just the law of attraction. You can't sit there and I go, attract 15,000 square foot home. Come to me. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, boom, are you with me? Like you look outside, there's a 15,000 square foot home waiting for you to walk into outside. That's not the law of attraction. You know, what Napoleon Hill talks about is with absolute specificity and definiteness, know what it is that you want. So if you want a house, don't just say you want a house. Say you want a 12,000 square foot home, right, with a 6-car garage with 12 bathrooms, right, and be very, very specific. And that's absolutely what Arlene and I did. We said, hey, we want a home that's 15,000 square feet. We want a house that's 9 bedrooms. We want 12 bathrooms. We want a big what room for entertainment. We want a big backyard. Excuse me, he said, how big a backyard? We want 1 acre in our backyard. That's just for our guests to hang out and have parties, right? You can have a pretty good party on an acre of land, you know? Uh, right? You could have a whole concert going on. That's what we did, and we wrote it down. And then what we did is we actually met with our architect, and we actually said, this is how we want to build out our house. And so they started applying it. We wanted underground tunnels, and they actually built underground tunnels, you know, through our property. You know, I mean, it's pretty crazy. And people say, why? And I go, why not? You know, I went to the Hearst Castle in Northern California, and I saw the way this guy lived. And I mean, you know, my house is even smaller than that. So know exactly what you want. So that's your goals, right? And then P are the plans, is how, right? How are you going to get it done? All right. When you do that, when you have your plans, look at it daily. Look at it when you wake up in the morning. Look at it before you go to bed. I wish you could actually see my house right now. Maybe I should even go down there. I should actually show you the walls of everything that's up there so that you can visualize it, right? And plan it out and
Oh,
how
I'd
it's all
love
going
to.
to,
Do you have a
you know what
minute
I
to
mean?
show us?
Yeah, I can get up and actually show you. And then S is to schedule it, right? Schedule it and absolutely do it, right? Like
Yeah.
get it done, right? And so, and people always say, well, when's a good time to, you know, have a baby? Like never, right? You just have a baby and you deal with it, right? You know, so I mean, you know, plan. I'm like, all right, next week we're gonna have a baby, you know, and it just doesn't work like that. So let me just let me can I turn this sucker around? I think I can turn this around. All right, let's see. Turn it around. All right, so don't mind my kitchen, everyone.
You've got a
All right,
beautiful
now,
home.
oh, thank you. Now check this out. So everything is written out. You see, these are all the speaker rosters. right? Look at this. These are all the live tour dates.
That's great.
See that? It's all written down. These are all the speakers and which cities they can come to, right? Look at all the different cities. We're going to all these different cities right here. Okay? Yes, no, et cetera, right? Look at every speaker, what days they can actually speak, all these different speakers right here. And then we continue. We got more stuff posted up here. Now check this out. I got a whole digital team sitting over here, right? Hands on. Oh, say hello to everyone, right? Look at that. Right? Look at
Hello.
this. Look at this. These are all our VIP movie screenings that are going on. Okay? Look at this. All written out. This is our cities and where we're actually going. You know, who's helping me over here with all the facilitators. And then this is how we're getting it all done. The TGR World Tour in terms of our marketing and how it's all happening, right? Ticket prices and masterminds and all that kind of stuff, right? So there you go.
That is so cool. I love that. You might want to consider painting your entire house with that special whiteboard paint, because then you can write on all of the walls everywhere
Right.
instead of just using the big post-it posters on the windows.
Yeah. So
That's a beautiful house you got there.
oh, thank you very much.
All right. Well, I know you've got to go. So that was really quite a lot of fun and gives us a good glimpse into the power of Think and Grow Rich. Of course, we didn't have time to go through all 13 principles, but that's what the book is for. So take the book from the library or order it from Amazon and actually read it and apply it. And how many times would you say that you've read Think and Grow Rich?
I would say that I read it probably daily right now.
Wow.
Every day, yeah, almost every day I'm reading something different because I mean, and I mean it. I kid you not. Almost every day I read it religiously because there's something that every time I read it, I learn something new. You know, and just when you think you know it, you
Yeah.
learn something new, right?
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, John. And again, the website for the World Tour is tgrworldtour.com. And then
That's right.
for the movie and for the book, where should they go to get those?
So the book can go, they can go to tgrasianchoice.com, tgrasianchoice.com, and they can pre-order. And then hopefully in the next month or so, as soon as the book comes out, they'll be able to order online at amazon.com. And then if they come to any of the tour events, we'll actually have books for sales there as well. I also want to offer everybody a coupon code. They're listening to you so that we can give them a coupon code to get a savings, you know, so that whatever the packages are, they can actually get $200 off. So I don't know. Think of a word that we can create a coupon code for. What do you think? What should we give your
How
audience?
about optimized?
Optimize. Okay, done.
With or without a D? I said optimized, but I heard you say optimized. Let's pick one or the other.
Optimized with a D. No,
Yeah.
without a D. Optimize, right?
Optimize. Okay. So the keyword is going to be optimize.
Okay, so OPTIMIZE.
Yep.
Okay, done. Just let me get my programmers to get it up and running, and so that your audience can actually get a $200 discount on every ticket that they buy. So there's different packages and pretty much applicable to all. We did a ticket price there for students as well. We want students to go and learn. The ticket price, I think, for a student is like 69 bucks, you know, for 2 days. I mean, really? Like for $35 a day to go and listen to multimillionaires and billionaires, it'd almost be negligent for them not to go, you know?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was a great, generous offer. And I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your journey with my listeners. And if they wanted to follow you or learn more about you, besides picking up your book, do you have a website or a social channel you want to direct them to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram. I have post a lot of stuff on Instagram. It's John Shin official on Instagram, and then on my website is John C as in Charlie Shin So they can go in there and a bunch of stuff they can get for free.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again, John. Really appreciate your time. And listeners, now take some action and apply what you've learned. And hopefully you'll also go to the event and get tons of value there. And we'll catch you
Absolutely.
on the next episode of Get Yourself Optimized. In the meantime, have a fantastic week.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time, and apologies to the next podcaster who I made you late for, but thanks for taking the time to do this.
No worries. Thanks.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.